If you're one of those people who didn't like Prometheus because you thought the characters were stupid, that there were too many questions, the script was bad, you're not going to like Alien Covenant. Even if you enjoyed Prometheus, and for the most part I did, I still can't see how you will enjoy Alien Covenant. Regardless of whether you like Prometheus or not, I think it's fair to say that Alien Covenant is worse than Prometheus. Let's get into why I think this is the case. One of the biggest complaints about Prometheus was the characters. For a bunch of highly trained, hand-picked scientists embarking on humanity's greatest expedition to date, they seem to be incredibly stupid. We just landed on a new planet. There's only 15 minutes or so of daylight left. We should probably wait until the morning to explore, right? Nah, let's just jump right in and race against the clock for the sake of it. We found a breathable atmosphere in this building on this alien world we just found. Let's take off our helmets. What's this giant alien worm creature thing looking at me? I'll just reach out and touch it. What's the worst that could happen? Well, if you thought that was bad, you'll laugh or possibly even cry at how stupid the Covenant's crew are. The Covenant is a ship on a deep space terraforming and colonization mission. Right at the start of the film, a giant solar flare causes significant damage to the ship. As a result, the crew are woken from their cryosleep chambers and frantically scramble to rescue each other. The ship's captain, played by James Franco, perishes in this chamber, along with around 40 or so of the 2,000 colonists also in cryosleep. With the captain dead, command passes to the ship's second-in-command, Aurum. At the start, it seems as if Aurum is going to be a really interesting character. He's a Christian, and he believes that a lot of the crew don't respect or like him because of this. Turns out this probably isn't the case, and that it's probably because the man is a complete fucking idiot. Every single decision or action Aurum takes in this film turns out to be the wrong thing to do. When the ship's android Walter, again played by Michael Fassbender, tells Aurum that the ship was damaged by a giant solar flare and such phenomena are random and can only be detected at the last minute, Aurum completely disregards what he was just told and orders the crew to be more prepared so this doesn't happen again. When the crew intercept a strange signal coming from a nearby seemingly habitable planet, he goes against his next-in-command's recommendation that they do otherwise because, they don't know what's down on this planet. There's also the fact that all of their training has been based on their intended planet, and he just says that it's a good decision to go based on the data at hand. Later in the film, when they are on the planet, the landing team are on the run from at least one alien and are holed up with the android from Prometheus, David, who's been marooned on this world for the last 10 years. It's clear that David is a bit odd to say the least, and his story about what happened to Shaw and the inhabitants of this planet don't seem to add up. Aurum finally figures this out, pulls his gun on David and orders him to tell him exactly what's going on, or he'll start shooting. To which David says, "Alright then, follow me." And Aurum is just like, "Oh well, in that case, lead the way." David leads him to a room full of alien eggs, tells Aurum to take a closer look at one of the eggs because it's quite safe. Boom, face hugger, that's the end of Aurum. Good riddance, you gullible fool. The rest of the crew aren't much better. They're all just there, and just act as complete alien fodder. As soon as the crew land on this planet, they all just walk out dressed as if they're going on a hiking trip. Even the Prometheus's crew were at least a little bit apprehensive before they all took their helmets off inside the temple, but the Covenant crew aren't even remotely protected for any deadly pathogens that could be floating around in the air, which, spoiler alert, there are, and 2 of them get infected within minutes of landing. The resulting neomorph attack on the landing craft leads to an almost comical sequence of events from the crew members trying to fight the creature. Aurum's wife is killed by the neomorph after she slips and falls on a puddle of blood created by the neomorph's eruption from their crewmate's body. The ship's pilot then runs in with a gun to shoot the thing, but she slips on the exact same pool of blood for crying out loud. She dies after barely escaping the alien, but manages to blow up the entire ship because she hit a fuel line or something while firing indiscriminately at the creature. 2 slips on a puddle of blood. I had never actually felt like laughing in an alien movie before. Even Daniels, played by Catherine Waterston, is not very memorable or interesting in this film, despite being portrayed as the movie's protagonist in all the promotional material. She's the wife of the captain who died at the start of the film, and there's this weak, not very well fleshed out backstory for how she and her husband were going to build a log cabin on their new homeworld. Her character doesn't really kick into gear until the last act of the film, but by then it's all too late and she's just performing all the hero type stuff and saves the ship because someone has to. As was the case in Prometheus, Michael Fassbender's characters of androids Walter and David are easily the most interesting characters in the movie. While being physically identical to David, Walter is a next-generation model of android. His creators realized that David was too human, so they've made Walter far more robotic and subservient. Unlike David, Walter has neither the urge or ability to create. This trait leads to conflict between David and Walter, with David attempting to kill Walter later on. Walter is so obviously like David to look at that you always feel a sense of unease about him. Can he be trusted? Is he going to go batshit insane like David did? The two android characters are a great contrast, and the whole conflict between them is genuinely interesting. Probably the best human character of the film is Danny McBride's character, Tennessee. His character is surprisingly straight and doesn't offer any comic relief in this film at all. But he's wasted here. He spends most of the film in a support role on board the Covenant, while the action takes place on the planet below. My biggest beef about the characters though was how I couldn't have cared less about most of them. This is one of the problems of the script, as there's not much in the script that tells us anything about these characters. We don't know who they are, what they are like, so there's no reason to care about them. Did you know that Demian Bashir's character Lope was gay? Neither did I until I read a review of the film afterwards. There's a prologue scene available on YouTube called The Last Supper, which shows the Covenant crew sharing a drink before they all go into cryosleep. The scene gives us a little bit of backstory into some of the characters. Why this was left out of the film just baffles me. Had it been left in, I might have cared a little bit more about some of the characters, as I would have known something about them. Every character apart from Daniels, Tennessee, and David serve as alien bait in this movie, and when they're killed, you just don't care. So the characters are mostly just throwaway, but another contributing factor as to why you don't care about their deaths is because there is no tension. The original Alien film was famous for its tension. The film took its time to not only illustrate the characters, but also spent time building up the threat of this terrifying alien that was taking the crew out one by one. Alien Covenant feels so predictable and telegraphed that it completely eliminates any sense of fear or tension. The pacing of the movie also doesn't help. Right from when the crew arrive on the planet, the movie seems to move so fast, it really feels as if the whole film has to hurry up because there are characters that have to be killed. So we get ushered from death scene to death scene until a xenomorph manages to cling on to the rescue ship as it takes off. Daniels kills it, but inexplicably there just happens to be another xenomorph that made its way on board because this is an alien movie after all. Another few quick deaths of crew members, flush it out into space, the end. Speaking of the end, it is extremely predictable. From the moment we're introduced to David, it becomes blatantly obvious how this film is going to end. The whole film felt like a giant paint by numbers. Also, if you came into this movie expecting answers to the questions raised in Prometheus, you are going to be very unhappy. I think this was my greatest disappointment of the film. I quite liked the whole engineers creating and then for some reason wanting to destroy humanity plot that was raised in Prometheus. It was really interesting, and I was really looking forward to Alien Covenant because we were hopefully going to get some answers regarding the engineers. Nope. Apart from a flashback scene of David arriving on the planet in the engineer's spaceship that shows how he used the black goo to wipe out the inhabitants of the planet, there's not a single mention of the engineers and their plot that was developing in Prometheus. Actually, the fact that the Covenant's crew find this planet filled with humanoid corpses, grandiose architecture, and all the other trappings of civilization on a planet light years from Earth, but don't even so much as acknowledge the fact, really made me angry. These are supposed to be scientists who stumble upon an alien civilization in deep space. You think that would at least warrant a, well, that's quite interesting, but no, there isn't a single mention of what should be the greatest discovery in human history. It's infuriating. Finally, I want to comment on the aliens themselves. I feel as if Ridley Scott, 20th Century Fox, or both of them felt as if people didn't like Prometheus because there weren't any aliens in it, so they cram a buttload of them into this next film. While I liked how wild and unpredictable the Neomorphs seemed, the CG of them and the Xenomorphs were not very good, especially of the baby aliens who have just burst from their victims. I thought Ridley Scott was a director who champions practical effects where possible, but the CG aliens of this movie looked, well, very CG indeed. Overall, this film was a mess. A disappointing mess. I came out of this film thinking, what was the point of all that? Alien Covenant teaches us nothing new. It doesn't answer any of Prometheus' questions, and only adds to the ever-confusing origin story that Ridley Scott appears to be just making up as he goes along. So if Prometheus was a sequel to Alien, and Alien Covenant was a sequel to Prometheus, the next film should be a sequel to Alien Covenant, right? Not exactly. Ridley Scott has implied that the next film could be a prequel to Alien Covenant. So we will go from prequel to sequel of the prequel to prequel of the sequel to the prequel? I don't know, the Alien franchise is in a complete mess right now. Anyway, what did you think of Alien Covenant? Did you love it or hate it? Did you think it was better or worse than Prometheus? Where is Ridley Scott going with all of this? I'd genuinely love to know anyone else's comments or views on all of this, so why not leave those ideas in the comments below?